Alright everybody, today we are talking about the Galah Cockatoo, less commonly known as the rose-breasted cockatoo, but if you're here in the United States, you probably hear it called the rose-breasted cockatoo more than the Galah. Most of the world knows this bird as the Galah Cockatoo. They are the only cockatoo in their genus, so they look like, they have a different appearance than most cockatoos. They still have the hood here that sticks up, like your Goffins and your sulfur cresteds and your umbrellas and your Moluccans. But they are obviously very stunning to look at. As they get older, their color will even become more pink, and they're gray, so sometimes they're also just called the pink and gray cockatoo. These guys are babies, so they're just crying for food here, so hopefully you're able to hear me well. They are native to Australia, and they are listed as least concern with CITES, which is like what classifies animals as endangered or of concern or a protected species, and their population is actually thriving and growing in Australia. These birds in Australia will be found in flocks as small as 10 and as large as over 1,000 birds. So they will flock in huge groups, and they will also intermix with other cockatoo species. So in Australia, it would not be uncommon to see a major flock of not just rose-breasteds or Galah cockatoos, but also major Mitchells and some other types of cockatoo species. Maybe the Galah cockatoo would be spotted with them. In the wild, they live on average between 20 and 40 years. 20 is more the norm because there's many things that can affect them. But in captivity, if they're fed a balanced diet, a nice, good, healthy seed mix, a really high-quality pelleted diet, fresh fruits and veggies, small amounts of proteins, they've been recorded to live as long as 70 years. Even though these guys are being very noisy, just this one, really, huh? So you're being so noisy. And they just ate, too. Even though they're being very noisy right now, they're actually known to be one of the more quiet of the cockatoo species. So cockatoos are always known, all birds are loud, let's preface it with that, but cockatoo species are known to be one of the noisier and one of the loudest screaming birds, but the rose-breasted is known to be a little bit quieter. Let's see if we can get you to stop that. There you go. So they can talk, they can learn to talk. They also are really good at mimicking. So they learn, people say they're really good at mimicking car horns and cell phones ringing and doorbells ringing. But they do learn to talk. They're not going to be anything, their speaking capability is nothing like that of the Amazon species or the African gray species, but they definitely will learn to say a few words. Cockatoos as a species, as a whole, are very, very needy birds. And they're very powerful chewers regardless. The Galah Cockatoo is one of the smallest cockatoo species. It measures in at just under 12 inches, but it still needs a ton of cage space, minimum cage size 42 inches. Bigger is always better. They're going to need, and like cockatoos, because of how needy they are, they need a ton of time outside their cage. So they're going to need several hours a day outside their cage, interaction with you, or if they're not, a lot of times that will lead to feather plucking. Again, even though they are small, they're still powerful chewers, so they need a lot of toys, a lot of interaction, a lot of stimulation in that sense. They stay under a pound as well. So like I said, if you're familiar with cockatoo species, they are one of the smaller, but this is not a small bird by any means. It's still a large bird, but one of the smaller of the cockatoo species. Price, I guess I always try to touch on price. They are an expensive bird. They are not, it's not legal to export them. So even though we maybe say in Australia, I've heard people in Australia refer to them as the Australian pigeon. That's how many there are. But it is illegal to export them, to trap them, to trade them. So these guys were raised and bred here in the United States. And they are a rare bird in the United States. So, they are expensive because of that. Typically between $6,000 and $7,000 is the price tag you're going to find on a rose-breasted or a Galah Cockatoo. They breed early season in captivity, so their breeding season starts like closer to an Indian ringneck, and they typically only breed once per year. So a lot of other cockatoos will breed multiple times a year or later in the middle of the season. The rose-breasted seem to reproduce now, early at the beginning of the year, beginning of April, May. These are early season babies, and then there's no more babies after that. So this will most likely, we might get lucky and get a couple more rose-breasted cockatoos in this year, but this will probably be the only ones that we'll see this year. So any questions or anything I missed, feel free to drop your questions in the comments and we'll do our best to answer. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.